Good afternoon, everyone. Advisory firm Longwealth GmbH, based in Vienna, and focuses on productive durability and longevity of organizations. Through its living machine model, endorsed by MIT Berkeley and Wharton, Longwealth advises owners of companies to find a fusion between wisdom traditions and modern management tools. He was also a former MD of Brand Finance India and Global Strategy Director of Brand Finance PLC.
Good afternoon, all. Can you hear me? Yeah. Firstly, thanks to Dean Varun and Dr. Surya for having involved us in this process of co-creating this event. It's been a distinct pleasure and an honor to work with both of you. And secondly, just to say, I am a Bharati Vidya Bhavan product, and in a way, it's a happy homecoming. Yeah. And also to see, it brings me a lot of wonderful memories when I was learning Sanskrit in the class 4 and class 5 and all through high school, and also practicing meditation and yoga and all. Thanks to Bharati Vidya Bhavan again, right? And also very familiar faces, people who have influenced our ideas and thoughts, especially people from the House of Tatas. All these people have contributed to what I will be sharing in a few minutes. Before I start, just wanted to connect a lot of dots which appeared from various perspectives. I think the first one, which was very interesting, was by David, who talked about, and also Surya, you talked about the web of gems. All throughout our work with companies over the last 18 years, we were focused on a certain subject which the Western world describes as intangible. I had severe disagreements with that all throughout. It almost makes it immaterial, understood, poorly understood, airy-fairy. These were the kind of words which people use to express this. It took me about 15 years to re-tag it. Somebody mentioned the importance of changing language in the morning session, and we have now calling it living elements. And I think it bestows upon them the right honor and the right seriousness, rather than calling them flirty, airy-fairy subject called intangibles. That is one. The second, when I think of gems, is that each of those living elements are connected in a web of interconnectedness. So we look at leadership mindset, purpose, trust, culture, etc. And all of them are bound by a living force, a life force, which brings them together. The third element, which I had a disagreement with the Western world, was really how they understood financial value. They are always looking at the next quarter or maybe the next year in a static way. But there is a very large proportion of value of any enterprise situated in what is referred to as perpetual value. I would encourage all MBA students in this conference room to do a Google search to see how much of research has been done on perpetual value. You will see nothing. Yet it composes 70% of value of any enterprise. It is the storehouse of regenerative value of a company. So what we did over the years was basically observe many companies and understand that the living elements were not being connected to regenerative value. And that's what our little contribution. I think you mentioned in the morning, you were a lab by your own. I was my own lab for about 10 years after I stopped brand finance. And I decided to spend about 10 years trying to put all this together. So that's what we do. And that's why I said over there, it's a perspective from practice. I don't have any theory to give. I'm talking from 18 years of practice. I think he said it well. A lot of the struggle in the morning about which dimension is important, the wisdom part, the intuitive part, or the rational part, the analytical part, but we need a happy alignment, a happy fusion between the two. But we don't live in a society where it is balanced. We know that that is the case. Every time you look around, you see a crisis of trust, a crisis of people, crisis of finance, a crisis of everything, climate, everything. So just to show you that opposing paradigms that we are faced with as a paradox, as humanity, you have on one side the wisdom view and the other side the conventional view. And I'll now put up each dimension, and everybody in this room will be familiar with what I'm talking about, hopefully. I'm not going to talk because it's obvious, I hope. If you can't see it, yeah. All of these are the real world challenges that we have seen in company owners and senior leadership. They struggle between the two worlds to bring some sort of a unification, not saying one is better than the other or this is better than that. That would be utterly false. And in most cases, I think we are also living in a world where we have to understand the context of culture, where one side is dominant while the other side less so. And many of the struggles that we face in our discussions is because the dominant voice screams at us saying, this is truth, this is truth, this is truth, while the other side may be a little more shy, a little more introverted, a little more self-reflective, does not have the chance to come up and make a strong case unless there is a founder, unless there is a certain person who stands by it and fights for it, right? And what has happened is that the conventional model has overextended itself and crashed into the wall. And having crashed into the wall, we understand that it has crashed because there are many multiple crises all over us. And this model cannot continue. This way of looking at business cannot continue. And many of the symptoms that we find in organization, burnouts, people not able to come back to work at the right time, mass quitting, many of these things are related to these things. So one question I have, a broad question, is really, can India hope to make a difference by merely emulating the conventional models? Can we merely copy what has been done by the conventional models and hope to make a difference? For example, I was saying to Dean Varun, or just before lunch, that many of the Western corporations are rapidly decreasing in longevity. The longevity of companies is dramatically dropping in the Western world. Do we want to emulate that? Would that be a great story for some of our great companies? What is I think in the morning, David, you mentioned India can be a net exporter of wisdom. Can we export some wisdom and bring a more healthier balance to the global debate? How would one attempt to make such a harmonious balance and bring dynamic, constructive tension between these two opposing paradoxes? We believe it is possible. We see there are many proof points to this beautiful constructive tension. A lot of our work is about shaping that, and we are doing that through a model referred to as the living machine. And this model has been tested, shared with many of the leading universities, and we hope that we have a greater chance to debate, maybe possibly referring to as a kind of an innovation which India needs to look at. And that's pretty much, I think, what I wanted to share. One last thing, none of this was done by me or anybody in particular. We have to give credit to the customers who asked us the deeper questions. the House of Tatas really is where most of these questions originated. The gentleman passed away earlier this year. His name is Mr. Krishna Kumar. He had met me when I was 35, 34 years old. At that time, we were working on one of the group companies. One of the questions he asked me in private when we were doing work for him was, Unni, do you think a company can have a soul? And if so, can we represent that soul in the discussions that you're going to have with management? So this is a tribute to him, the way that he's inspired us. And thank you all for your attention.